morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute delight and an honor to be with you for the ET Infrastructure Summit. There are a large number of people in this distinguished audience whom I know, whom we've met in the infrastructure fraternity, and there are some whom I'm delighted to make acquaintance. Very interestingly, it begins by taking us very far from Delhi, where we sit over here, to our border areas, and I'm sure most of you have traveled over there, either in building infrastructure, looking at infrastructure, or perhaps on holiday. Now, I will very briefly try to tell you about what the Border Roads does. We work on the infrastructure of our land borders, entirely starting from Rajasthan, the deserts, moving on to Jammu and Kashmir, and then taking a turn to the right, to the east, and going on through Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Bhutan, Arunachal Pradesh, and then winding our way southwards through Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. We don't stop there. We have our presence in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, where we're working with the Coast Guard. And we have some presence in the hinterland, which I'll come to subsequently. So far, we've constructed 65,000 kilometers approximately of roads, and these are entirely in the border areas in very high altitude and difficult terrain of Himalayan geology. And we have about 1,000 odd bridges to our credit. So we've made a certain amount of headway in building tunnels. Most of this is through the NATM method. And what you would know is that recently, last year, we were able to inaugurate the Sela Tunnel in March, which was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi. And we did the first blast for the Shinkunla Tunnel on the Zanskar Range. And we are well underway to constructing that tunnel also. Both of these are landmarks because one, the Sela leads on to Tawang, which is a area of strategic importance. It gives us all-weather connectivity. It gives us a double-lane road through the pass, which otherwise remains snowbound. And Shinkunla, of course, provides the gateway through to the Nimupadam-Dacha road, which has already been connected, which will give all-weather connectivity to the third and shortest axial to Leh from our hinterland. We have expertise in building airfields, so essentially you can understand that the Border Roads deals with a lot of pavement. And we have constructed the Bagdogra airfield. We are looking forward to inaugurating the Mudh Nyoma airfield at 15,000 feet in eastern Ladakh, which would be perhaps one of the highest airfields in the world. The government, in the last 10 years or so, I must say this without any demur, that has given a phenomenal, unparalleled surge into development of border infrastructure. And this comes not only in terms of budgetary support, but also policy directions. Naturally, the Border Roads has been called upon, like the other agencies, to increase their capacities. And so it has been a story of trying to improve what you do. We have received a phenomenal amount of budgetary support. So last year, the budget of the Border Roads Organization just for border infrastructure was about 16,600 crores. That has been added to this year, which is about 18,600 crores. Now, in terms of magnitude and in terms of budget, for many of you, this may not be very large, but considering the fact that this is focused on roads in high altitude and difficult terrain, and in areas where we have tremendous challenges, both in terms of climate and geology, it is very significant. And compared to something 10 years ago, where this was touching only about 4,000 crores, this is a quadruple jump, and it's only going to increase. We have completed a large number of projects, and in the last 2 years alone, we have completed 250 infrastructure projects in the border areas. So it's not just work under progress, but it is work being completed. And we look forward to completing another 125 in another month's time. So I am just waiting to see those which are inaugurated. Of course, most of you know our challenges, but for a person dealing with infrastructure, these challenges need to be summed up about what they actually mean. They actually mean that you are able to work only about 6 to 7 months in a year, whether it is the north, where the issues of climate, where the issues of extreme temperature, sub-zero temperatures and snow, or in the east, where you have a tremendous amount of precipitation, the largest perhaps volume of waterfalls in the northeast in the world. So I think it is comparable to the Amazonian rainforest or the Congo. So that is one of the issues of climate. The second thing is that all border infrastructure comes at the rate of that most of what needs to get there comes across a long line of communication, a trail line of approximately 300 to 400 kilometers. So for someone building over there, he needs to establish base, he needs to establish store dumps, he needs to be able to keep them sustained for the months when in the non-working season. It adds to cost, it adds to his own management of how he intends to complete the project. So you need to get it very right. Someone who is able to build and construct, let's say in Rajasthan or Mumbai or Nagpur or any of these areas, may not necessarily be the right person to be able to work over there unless he has or gained the experience and the expertise of working over here. So briefly, we have about 18 projects, of which half of them are in the north and the other half are in the east. Like I said, these are the challenges which the border roads faces. So what we've been trying to do over time is nothing sensational, but in terms of getting the best technology which is available in the country to the border areas is itself something significant. So while this may be very common and perhaps used about 15 to 20 years earlier, anywhere else, for us it makes a lot of difference, because not only they need to be precast, they need to be modular, they need to be able to get over there. Now, many people come to me and say that why aren't we looking at tunnel boring machines? I just was speaking to Colonel Parikshit over here, who's an expert in tunneling. So the first part is, how do you get the machine there? If I'm working in Leh or Ladakh, if I'm working in any of these areas, I need to move, let's say, till where it is, let's say in Chandigarh or Pathankot. How do I move it across a very long, tenuous road line and get the technology over there? So those of you who are into infrastructure or into building construction equipment, the challenge is that can we assemble, can we airlift, can we sustain, do we have the equipment readiness to be able to use the technology which we could normally use elsewhere in the areas which they are required to be used. So we are doing some work over here. This is the Daulat Beg, the road going to the Daulat Beg Oldie. I would ask some of you to look it up on the map. It's right on a corner of India in a very strategic location. And here we are faced with a zone where we have frequent slides and avalanches. So this is something that we're looking at as a cut and cover tunnel. It looks very rudimentary and a little out of place, but then when you stand there and see where it is actually made, that's where the difference really is. So we have been looking at working with the Garden Reach shipbuilders, and over the last 3 years, we've been able to use the old 1940s vintage Bailey equipment, give it an upgrade, make it give a load class 70, make it to a span of 45 meters. So we work with them such that we build the abutments and they launch the bridge for us. The other part about this is that we've been able to build piers and launch segments of the modular bridge and reach the spans which are required. Now, we began this about 3 years ago when we signed an MOU, and out of the 92 bridges that we contracted for, we've already laid 45. The best part about this is we began this, and subsequently the NHIDCL, which has much more heft than we have, they went into an MOU with GRSE for this same modular bridge. And then now we are working in Chhattisgarh with the Ministry of Home Affairs in the area where we are confronted with the problem of left-wing extremism. And we constructed these bridges over there, and they decided that they want these bridges in Chhattisgarh. So I think the humble backgrounds of this bridge should not be, or the venerable backgrounds of this bridge should not deter us. This is a very interesting solution, which is now being copied by other agencies. We'd like to take the credit for that. So we have been engaging with the academia and the industry. The best part is that there is a great degree of surge in the interest and the willingness to rough it out in the remote locations. So what we do is we go in for a trial with them, we provide them the administrative support, and we have worked with CSIR to develop RejuPave, which is a means by which you are able to coat the aggregate. We've also looked at steel slag being used. RejuPave allows us to work with bitumen. It's an emulsifier which, when added to the bitumen, allows us workability even at lower temperatures. So you could imagine that if you're working on a mountain road where the hot mix plant is fired up and the temperature outside is minus 10 degrees centigrade, by the time you take what you have and are using it at the place where you are, you need to have workability still at temperatures, because it is going to fall below the working limits very fast and very soon. Like I said, we were able to inaugurate the Sela Tunnel. This was a project which was completed on time. This was in Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh. I do, after the Atal Tunnel, which has been again built by the Border Roads, and Colonel Parikshit was a very integral part of that team which built the Atal Tunnel. After that, Sela was the second one. It's about 4.5 kilometers long, a twin tunnel which is built as per the IRC code, the new IRC codal specifications. And this is really a game changer. Very few people realize that how it has actually changed the dynamics of Tawang. It actually gives us the ability to carry much larger stuff. Now, for the military, it's the toys that we use, and for the civilians, it is the construction equipment and the other heavy equipment which can now move into Tawang. The Atal Tunnel, of course, is something which I would urge all of you who have not been there to take a look at how it has been done. It had its problems. We did encounter something called the Serinala fault, where we encountered an aquifer as we went in. I just had a discussion with Colonel Parikshit, and we've still been wondering whether we can get the TBM over there. Will TBM work in Himalayan geology? Do we need to continue doing NATM? So these are issues which we will grapple with and gradually find a way forward. The Mund Nyoma airfield, which is being constructed in eastern Ladakh. And one of the things which has happened by the enormous, unprecedented government support has been that we have been able to connect our border areas. I have said this before, I will say this again, that your strategic sovereignty depends on your ability to have people in your border areas. We don't require Potemkin villages. We have people who live over there. And those people need to get the roads, because roads and infrastructure are the backbone of getting people over there. They provide economic opportunities, they provide healthcare, they provide communications, they provide schools, they provide banking facilities. And all of these which happens is, I think that one of the very important aspects of India is our ability to innovate and the enterprise which our people inherently have. I think that enterprise and initiative needs to be supported by development of infrastructure. So all that you need is the road, the bridges, and the ability to get there. And once that happens, everything else follows. So like I said, the Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned that what we were calling as the last villages are actually the Pratham Gaon. That is the first villages that you have. So it's a completely different mindset when we are approached with border infrastructure. And I must say that the Ministry of Defense, under whom we come, the Honorable Raksha Mantri, Shri Rajnath Singh ji, has actually changed the amount of budget, has changed the policy, has changed the amount of manpower planning that the border roads has been receiving. And I think because of that, we've become the go-to agency of all ministries and many other PSUs. We are working with the Northeastern Power Corporation. We are working with the astronomers who require observatory in Hanle. We are working with the Coast Guard. We are working with the Ministry of Home Affairs. The Honorable Minister of the Home Minister, Shri Amit Shah ji, has given the border roads the task of building the Indo-Myanmar border fence, which is 1,300 kilometers long, begins at Arunachal Pradesh, ends up in Mizoram. And we've also, like I said, building roads in Chhattisgarh to combat the menace and the scourge of left-wing extremism. So I think this doesn't happen until we get a huge amount of industry support. And I'm really happy to say that the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative has actually taken root very well. Whatever equipment we require, we are able to source from India. So that, I think, is a very significant change from the earlier way that we were doing things. And it's not just that we are relying on second or third grade equipment. It's top of the line, first rate technological stuff which we are able to use and bring in over there. And our main aim has been to improve the quality and the vintage of our fleet. So that requires budgetary support, that requires policy initiative, which I must say the Ministry of Defense has been supporting us with. So now comes to how we get to do it. As you know, the Border Roads is one of the only organizations which works departmentally, in the sense that we have our engineers, we have our junior engineers, we have the supervisors, the people who operate the plant. Everything is available with us. And therefore, all that we need is cement and steel and bitumen. And we can hew our own rock and build our own roads, so that we can source. This is traditionally how the border roads has been functioning. But now, over the years, we are getting very good contractors who are working, and we've done some hand-holding with them. They're working in the border areas. They're doing a good job. They're getting better and better. They're willing to invest capital in both in terms of the resources and the machinery to get the job done quickly. So now we have moved into a hybrid where we work departmentally and in EPC, and that, I think, is the only way forward. That we need to, if we need to do more, there will be a limit. We will plateau at what we will be able to do departmentally, but then the surge that is required will only happen once we engage with contractors, once we build more EPC contracts into the work that we do, because there is a large order book. So this is just a snapshot to say that we are part of the Border Roads Network Action Plan. There are a host of agencies. PWD builds roads, CPWD builds roads, the NHAI and the NHIDCL build roads in the border areas. So we connect with them so that there's no duplicity, and we allow infrastructure to be developed seamlessly. We have a large number of records, which is just bragging. And in summation, what I would like to say is that I'm very grateful for ET Infrastructure for organizing this event. It's very important that we continue talking, because this is an opportunity where we learn something different about the way each of us work, and we realize that there is better technology, there may be a better working model which would actually get us doing things much faster. I would, at this stage, just take one more minute. What we have found is that there has to be, we receive a large number of requests for technology demonstration. Now, anyone would, I mean, this is not something which I need to say to such an audience, but it still needs to be said. Better technology comes with three things. One is, it gets the work done faster, it gets the work done in better quality, and it is longer lasting. So it either tick marks all these three boxes usually, or it tick marks two or three of these, one or two of these boxes. But when it does come initially, it comes at a higher cost, which could be 30 to 35% more than what is presently being used. And that is where the challenge is. The challenge is that we need to be able to support, I feel, the technology till the time the costs come down. And as it is used more and more, whether it's something as simple as stainless steel bridges, something as simple as cementitious bases, eco-friendly road construction. Gradually, as we keep supporting it, my belief, and it's common knowledge, that it is likely to come down. So I think we need to work together to work and find a way to support such a system, because that's the only way we will, otherwise the ennui sets in. You tend to keep doing things the same old way. We need to find a way to keep having an incremental increase in the technology that we bring, and we need to support niche technologies. That's my belief. The second thing which I would like to underscore is that the amount of money we spend on the detailed project report is never going to be wasted. I think it's better to plan and be prepared, especially in difficult terrain, to be able to be ready for what you're likely to encounter once the construction begins. So that is another thing that we need to underscore, and that perhaps all of you know, but I think since all of us at various stages participate in the infrastructure ecosystem, it's good that we talk about it and we find a way forward to deal with that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a patient hearing. I wish you the very best.